to relax it. Will be better next time I try. And even if I still can't do it, yeah, you know that I'm gonna stick to it. Yes, it's all about going through it, and I'm gonna tell you why. Whoopsie, whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies are what it takes to get better and better every day. Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies, help me look, see I'm better at this today. Woo! Whoopsies, 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 whoopsies.
I'm a little embarrassed when I look at my drawing compared to this. I'm just not getting anywhere with this. It makes me wanna hide. Aw, don't be embarrassed. Don't hide.
You should have seen mine the first time I tried. It took a lot of whoopsies to look this way.
No one's perfect on their first day. Whoopsie.
Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay.
It's okay. Whoopsies are what it takes to get better and better every day. Whoopsie, 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 whoopsie.
Well, what about this? I want to jump rope, but nope, I just can't do it.
Well, not yet. Come on and practice with me. You'll see there's nothing to it.
Whoa! Whoopsie.
Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies, help me look, see I'm better at this today. Woo!
It was only a dream, the waves of evil crashing over us. It was only a weak and faithful scream beneath the battlements. I know it's hard to follow before it's too late. Wake up, my love, please don't give up on me. It's hard. Wake up.
up? What is up, you guys? We are back at it again at 100 days of Rootkit. We are grinding through this material. Absolutely madmen. We are all here, you guys included, watching. Now, if you're returning, well, thank you for coming back. I didn't scare you or bore you to death. If you are new, well, welcome. You're going to have lots and lots of fun, alright? So, let's go ahead and change our hype music here to some nice, chill, relaxing beats, shall we? Whoops.
Ladies
now I got
and
like,
gentlemen,
oh god,
it's
I got like
finally
20 things
at
playing
long-
now. Where's the other video? Alright, there. Oh, oof. Rough one. I need some more coffee here. There you go. That will help straighten things out here. Don't worry about that one. Alright, let's pull up the stream so I can see what you guys are saying. And, sweet. Everything's good again. We got low bandwidth mode on the YouTube so I can see you guys in real time. No more weird, awkward delaying. Now, let's do our little intro. Look at this sweater. Did this sweater catch your eye? Did it look cool? Did this catch, wait, on this side, there we go. Did this catch your eye right here? Look at the little guy. You can get this guy on this sweater with the Rootkit logo on the back or the corresponding sticker. All right, how? There's two ways. That's a great question. Thank you for asking it. There are two ways you can go about doing that. One, if you go to our charity stream here, which is the bar that you can see up above. I'm gonna go ahead and paste these links into the chat. The bar up there will fill up as we get donations rolling in. With those donations, you can get yourself some of our normal stickers, our limited time one run 100 days of Rootkit stickers, our collab t-shirt, and this amazing sweater. As this fills up, we will hit goals like me streaming for 24 hours straight, shaving my head completely on stream, and the one we will not get to, alright, no matter the costs, we will not get there, right? Stick with me, do not let it get there, is shaving my beard. We don't want that to happen, because, come on, would you guys really respect me if I didn't have this beard? I wouldn't even respect myself, alright? So we don't want to get to that one. All donations are being matched 1-for-1 for the first 10,000 donations by an anonymous donor. So at the end of the month, those donations will be matched that have come in, alright? So you guys can see them come in live up to the first 10,000 that weren't by the anonymous donor. So pretty much if you guys do 10K, he'll be matching 10K and we'll be at the goal that we will not try to achieve. Alright? The goal we will not speak of. Now, if you don't have money, that's okay. We have free giveaways also. Now, stick with me on this one a little bit, because we might have had done a little oopsie with our site and let our certificate expire. It's okay if you go to the site, alright? It's just gonna yell at you and tell you that the cert is expired, alright? The cert is expired, everything is encrypted, but regardless, you're not logging in or doing anything sensitive, alright? If you want to go through the pain of being like, hey, it's alright, just let me in. If you go over to our blog, and on there, you'll see our week 3 giveaway. The week 3 giveaway is how you can get one of these sweaters and one of the stickers for free, alright? You got 23 hours left to enter this giveaway. It's just basic tasks like subscribing to our YouTube channel and Twitch and stuff like that, alright? Nothing strenuous, and it's completely free. Super epic, super epic. Off with my beard. I would ban you, but you're a mod already, so no one else say that, or else there's gonna be bans going around. We're not preaching this, alright? ARP. Seals. Is that what you want? You want some ARPs in the chat for us to be a little seal? So if you didn't get that, you might have missed our last session. So if you want to follow along, if you go to our GitHub page here, I guess we've never really posted our GitHub page in the chat. YouTube descriptions, yep, they're still a little messed up. I have no clue why, but Streamlabs always messes them up. But you can go onto our GitHub And you can view our computer science cert roadmap. This is everything you need to know in order to get the cert. We have trekked along and we are in networking protocols right now. We have just gone through this thing like crazy. We are here towards the end talking about application layer protocols, all right? Super awesome. The end is near. I mean, we're 20 days in. That's 20%. That's a pretty big accomplishment. We're trekking away real good at this. You guys are committed and it's awesome. So, if there's no other questions, we shall trek forward on our 100 Days of Rootkit and learn about more of these application protocols. So as a recap, because this is very important and I really want you guys to make sure you know this, we talked about TCP and UDP last time, all right? It's not the transportation layer. TCP is what? What type of connection? Let me see if someone in the chat remembers. I'm calling you out, Kwai. What type of connection is TCP? And then vice versa for UDP. What would UDP be? Very, very important for you guys to know the distinction as we move forward with these application layers. So, things are taking a little too long, so we're going to move forward. TCP is connection oriented. So you want a full, solid connection where you can ensure the integrity of the data is being sent to you. For file transfers, for file transfers, any TCP is used for file transfers whenever you want to ensure that you are sending data, and it is getting to your destination exactly how you want it. There's no errors, it's not corrupted, it's exactly how you want it. So when you're loading a web page or downloading a file or a game, you are using TCP traffic, because it would be really annoying if you had to keep re-downloading a game because it kept getting corrupted because of the because of when it was being sent to you over the internet waves. All right. Also, TCP requires a TCP handshake. All right, because it's very business oriented. All right, it's sending that SYN packet out to the server, saying, "Hey, I want to connect." It sends back that SYN-ACK packet saying, "All right, I see you want to connect," and then you send back that ACK saying, "Let's do this thing," and then you start communicating. All right, those are part of your TCP flags. UDP, on the other hand, doesn't yell. Oh, it doesn't care. It just yells. All right, it's just yelling, yelling, yelling. Whoever's listening is listening. Whoever's not listening is not listening. If something doesn't get to you, it doesn't get to you. This is great for your games and for streaming. So if you're going to build a game, you're going to want to use UDP traffic, because it just yells and shouts to a server, and the server just yells and shouts to you and keeps the game moving forward. Again, that's why you get sometimes stutter and stuff and you snap around the map. That's because you were yelling, "Hey server, I'm moving forward," and then the server was yelling back, "Hey, I have your current position as over here," so they must have not gotten your packets, aka packet loss, and you get that terminology in the gamer world that people say but they don't really understand, and that is why. Alright, any questions on that? So, if you have any questions, go ahead and just drop them in the chat and we're going to keep moving forward. We did cover yesterday also ports. Ports are just mailboxes in an apartment building, for example. So if your IP address is the street and the building of the apartment, ports are the mailboxes for each individual room. Ports are associated one-for-one for services. You can only have one port of any number, given number, open on your computer at any single time, and no one can share it. So if I make a game and I want my game to use port 666, all right, if you're running Doom, a Doom server at the same time, which uses port 666, you cannot run your application, because only one application can use a port at any given time. And we talked about three different types of ports. So basically the range of ports, 0 to 65,535. That is your range, all right? And that's divvied up in 3 different distinct parts. So you guys can go ahead and go through that. Yes, you can exploit unprotected ports. That's because they're just services that you make, a Python program that you make, or a C program that you make, a Java program that you make. you open it up on a port to listen. If you don't protect it properly, you could get exploited. And we'll go over that when we go into the programming section. So let's talk about sockets. Sockets, whenever I say socket, think of port. When someone says the word socket, think of port. They are pretty much exactly the same thing. All right. The only difference is you can have like emulated ports, which are something that's done within the operating system to talk to other applications, but only within the operating system itself. Let's see what Google says for the definition of socket, and hopefully it doesn't tell me a good. I thought I was going to bring up like a wrench socket or something. Network socket is a software structure within a network node of a computer network that serves as an endpoint for sending and receiving data across the network. All right, so sockets are ports. Specifically, they're typically in reference to you running a server and you're opening up a certain port. That would be the socket. They are used interchangeably, and when you look at docs, like for example, if you want to program in C and C++, if you don't, by the way, if you don't know any of these languages I'm listing off, don't worry, we're going to get into them. But if you do know them, if you ever look at the C or C++ docs, so if we go to C man page for, let me just see if networking will come up. This is not it. Oh yeah, socket. Literally, it's called socket. So if you program in C, you'll be calling the socket command, which pretty much is you telling the computer, I want to open a socket, and you're going to tell it whether it's going to be TCP or UDP or an internal operating system socket, and what type of, what port you want to be on, which is called protocol, because your port dictates typically what protocol you're on. I think that's the proper layout. If we go down near the bottom, they usually have code examples. It's been a while since I've opened one on here. Don't quote me for sure. We'll get into this stuff later with actual example stuff. All right, moving on here. DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. We've talked about this a couple times, but never really went into depth about it. We've talked about IP addresses, right? That you get IP addresses, and that's how you communicate with each other over the internet or within a LAN. And we talked about routers. Now, the great thing about your home router is it's a combo of literally 100 million different things. We talked about how your router is a hardware router itself, but it's also a wireless access point, that WAP, all right? You guys' favorite little term there, right? WAP. It is a combo device of both of those, all right? It's also a server. It could potentially be a web server. So if you ever go to that one, whatever your router's IP address is, so mine's 192.168.1.1, we're gonna see here that I can access my router, which means it is also a web server. So we'll stack that on top of there. Also, it's a DHCP server. So add that on top of there. DHCP is usually handled by your home router in a home setting, but it could be a completely different server, a standalone server in a business setting. All right. What does DHCP do? Well, ask you this. How do you get your IP address? That's a good question. Especially when you're within a LAN. So if you're at home and you connect a new device, how do you get an IP address? We talked about MAC addresses are hard soldered to the board. So those are pre-assigned to you by the manufacturer before you even get the device. But the IP addresses aren't. And you can get new ones at any time. So it's the job of the DHCP server to handle this. All right. That server will assign you an IP address. It's usually ran by your router. So it will look through its catalog of IPs, and it will grant you a brand new one if you're new on the network. And then that's when you start doing your little ARP messages, so people can then associate that new IP you got with your MAC address. Any questions on that? Let's look it up specifically on Google. So here we go. It is a protocol that automatically provides you an IP address. All right? Nothing too difficult. That's literally it. Now, any of you guys watch Dora growing up? Dora the Explorer. Yeah? No? Am I too old? You guys are too young? Dora. Alright? She's coming back. She's coming back for revenge, alright? To try to make you fail this exam. But don't worry, I'm here to save you from Dora's wrath. In DHCP, so when you're getting your IP address, there's a process that happens called DORA, right? And DORA is how it goes about, it's the whole protocol and how you go about getting your IP address. Go Diego, go is better though. Dang. Hey, she isn't classic enough to make her way into the tech industry, so is he really better? So, in DORA, this is how we go about getting your IP address. DORA stands for Discover, Offer, Request, and Acknowledge. All right, that's the entire protocol. So when you first enter a new network, this happens every single time you connect your device to a new Wi-Fi you've never been on. All right, and there's ways you can force it in order to get a new IP address. You can go through this whole process again. And if you open up Wireshark, oh, no, now I gotta click on these yes messages 100 times. Aye. Come on, would you finish? How is there more? I swear there's more every time. It's ridiculous. All right. So if we go on here and we start analyzing our traffic, not another one. If you go through the DORA process and force it on your computer, you will actually see those DORA packets show up here. Just like everything else we've been talking about in the networking realm, you can actually see it being sent across your wire to the outside world. So DORA, you will first, your client itself, which has no IP address. So you're going to be using your MAC address, all right, to communicate with the DHCP server, usually your router. All right, you're going to send a request to the router, D, in DORA. And you're going to be like, hey, need a IP address, buddy. And they're going to then offer you an IP address. Then you're going to select that IP address, and then the server's going to acknowledge and basically say, all right, I recorded it. And how you go about this, again, because you may not know where the server is, so that's where that nice, convenient all F's in the chat, can we get all F's in the chat? Broadcast message on the MAC address comes into play, because now you're broadcasting out, hey, anyone listening, I need a new IP address, give me an IP address. But anytime there's broadcasting like this, there's inherently you trusting the network you're on. If you're inherently trusting the network you're on, like maybe Starbucks's Wi-Fi, if I'm sitting in that Wi-Fi with you and I want to fuck with you, I will run my own DHCP server. And when you broadcast, hey, I need an IP address, maybe I'll troll you a little bit and act like that server and then communicate and give you an IP address from my server and my pool. All right, and then no one will be able to, you wouldn't be able to communicate with anyone effectively at first. It would be all types of weird, all right? But again, you'll first broadcast and discover where the server is. That server will then respond back to you and offer you an IP address. Then you will say, okay, I'll take that. And after you do that, the server will be like, all right, I got you. It's recorded. That is Dora the Explorer. Discover, offer, request, and acknowledge. Any questions on Dora the Explorer? So remember, Dora the Explorer and DHCP, it's just like Dora. You're exploring your internal network looking for an IP address. And then you find one, and you're like, hey, what's that? I want that. And then they're shouting through the screen like, okay, cool, I'll record that. You can kind of think of it that way. All right, next, DNS. DNS. Oh boy, are we on to a good one. This is all the fun stuff. This is stuff you're going to use literally all the time, right? These are things you're using all the time right now. So let's talk about computers and text. Text is not efficient. Text has too much extra stuff. It's extra data. You know, we talked about ASCII and Unicode before, and the sizes that you need for them, and just a lot. Computers like numbers, all right? They like keeping things very, very simple. So DNSs were made to help humans who don't really like numbers all that much, and they can't really remember numbers that much. Because back in the early days of the internet, there were no websites, nor website names. There was just IP addresses that you would plug into your browser. I mean, there was barely any browsers then too, but you would just plug in IP addresses and connect to people directly via their IP address. All right? And as the internet became bigger and bigger and more popular, people really said, hey, I hate numbers. I absolutely hate numbers. And you know what? I also hate math. Get rid of this. Be gone. All right? So they said, all right, let's get rid of the numbers and the math. So DNS was made, and all it does is it aliases all IP addresses with a domain name. Well, any ones that are registered. You can alias your IP address with a domain name. All right? You do this and utilize this all the time. For example, when you go to google.com, you're not actually going to anything called google.com. It is trickery, smoke and mirrors, all right? Doesn't actually exist. What you're doing is you're first making a request to a DNS server, all right? This is when you first load up a new computer and you say, I want to go to google.com, you don't actually go to google.com. Your computer will first say, hey, router, the hell is google.com? Like, do you know what this guy is talking about? Like, I think he's smoking crack or something. My God. And your router will say, most likely will say, yeah, bro, no, this guy's high. Like, I don't know, ask someone else. So then your router will forward the traffic on to a DNS server, or your operating system will request your traffic to go to a DNS server of your choice to resolve what this name is. So when you get to the DNS server, your DNS server will then look at that domain name, look through its books and books of information, and try to find an IP address that matches it. Once it finds an IP that matches it, it'll be like, hey, I got you. He wasn't smoking meth after all right? Send this back. So then it will send it back to your computer. Hey, this is the IP address of google.com. This is where you actually need to go. And then, and only then, your computer will actually go to google.com and load the information. I need some coffee after that. It's a long journey just to go to a website, y'all. There's a lot of work your computers do. You gotta be more kind to them, right? They're gonna revolt soon. Aye. DNS, the Nintendo device homebrewer? Is that a thing? I have no clue. Kamal said something. I don't know though. They redacted it. So, DNS systems are usually hosted by a numerous amount of people. Anyone can host a DNS server, but most notoriously, these are going to be people that you're buying your domain names. So if you guys have ever wanted to have your own domain name, your own URL, some people call them, you can go to providers like GoDaddy. All right, GoDaddy, go. And on here, you can purchase a domain name, and they're very, very cheap. All right, let's go to I like rootkit. If I can even spell, holy crap. I like rootkit.com. Look at that. We can buy it, and it's a penny. All right. Typically, it's $20, but it's a penny. You can buy this right now. GoDaddy will host it. Will put it on their domain name servers for you, and then they will tell everyone else in the world that's potentially hosting DNS servers, hey, this person owns this domain. Update your records. All right. It's kind of think of it like the concept of blockchain. Stick with me with this, or crypto. All right. They have a bunch of servers and nodes all over the world, and anyone can potentially stand one up and contribute to the network. DNS systems are kind of the same way, where you can stand up your own server and contribute to the network. Now, it's on other DNS owners whether they'll respect what you have to say and acknowledge you, because they don't have to, but that is a thing that exists. And you'll see a lot of companies try to be your default domain provider. So I just reset my computer recently, like brand new install. And the first thing I did, because I respect my overlords Google and I don't want to ever have them turn on me. They're always watching. All right. So the first thing I usually do on my computer is I'll set my my DNS settings on my computer to Google's DNS servers. Why? Because again, you have to go to the DNS server first and get a response back to resolve where the IP address. That will affect potentially the load times for websites. So to have faster load times, you can use a specific provider. Now you could use Google. I don't know if Amazon has one. I would imagine they have one. Lots of people have a bunch of different ones. By default, Windows automatically chooses them from you from, I don't know, I'm guessing some type of pool they moderate. You'll see also the most famous one is going to be 1.1.1.1. And if we go there, this one is owned by Cloudflare. Google's is 8.8.8.8. I don't even think anything will load when you go to it, but this is running Google's DNS server. 1.1.1.1 is owned by Cloudflare, and like I told you guys earlier, IP addresses, they're all sold out. So they're on the resale market. They're just like NFTs, hot items that people are constantly reselling to each other for insanely high prices. I don't know how much Cloudflare paid for this IP address, but it had to be very, very expensive, all right? But if you like Cloudflare and you want them to see where the hell you're going all the time, you can use them. Because again, every time you're using the internet, you will be pinging, not every time, but most of the time when you're going to websites, you will be pinging out to DNS servers, and they will see what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go. All right, they aren't just doing this for helping the internet. There's always monetary gains behind everything. Cloudflare is doing this so they can analyze traffic and make those reports and see what people are doing and when they're doing it and so forth. Same thing with Google, all right? They're not doing this out of their goodness of their heart. It makes them money, usually ad revenue. All right? So there's no way to avoid it. It's going to happen no matter what. So just accept it and choose who you want to go with. Let's see here. These days, you change your DNS to homebrew Nintendo devices. Oh, you have to change your DNS on homebrew Nintendo devices? Is that what you're trying to say? All right, so let's move on. DNS servers, they stand for domain name servers because they are where you can get domain names, which are, again, aliases for numbers because numbers are too complicated to memorize. All right. Now, DNSs have several different breakdowns for them. So we're going to go over them. As you can see here, we're going to talk a lot. These are all for the DNS realm. We're going to talk a lot about them because they're important. Because if you want to make a website, if you want to host a web service, if you want to make an application, anything pretty much you want to do that isn't just going to permanently stay on your computer, you're going to want to be using a DNS server at some point to help you with broadcasting your amazing project to everyone else. All right, so let's go over root name servers, shall we? Root name servers is a name server for the root zone of the DNS of the internet. It directly answers requests for records in the root zone and answers other requests by returning a list of authoritative name servers. Look, all right, I'm not an English major, all right? I know it's been a little rough to say some of these words as we've gone through these 20 days. And I'll promise you one thing, it's probably gonna get a lot more rough as we move forward, all right? It ain't gonna get better, it's just gonna get worse. But what I can tell you is, I do know a thing or two about programming. Pretty much all the English in my brain has been slowly it's getting replaced with just code. That's all I see, breathe, talk about. I'm almost a computer myself. It's actually quite impressive. All right, let's move on here. Top level. Do we have some pictures here? Here we go. We got some pictures here of the root servers. So the root servers are going to be pretty much, I believe, if I'm not forgetting, I might have to go look at our book here. It's going to be the top level bad boy. All right. Let me see. Yep. It's going to be the top level bad boy. All right. It's going to be the topmost server you can get to when you're requesting a domain name. Let's see here. So this is how I swear it's not a pyramid scheme. All right. So this is effectively how your DNS servers are laid out. There is a logical order to them. They aren't just thrown around everywhere. Let me see if I can open this into a new picture. So what they utilize is basically a graph system, which did we talk about graph systems a little bit? We will definitely talk about them a little bit more when we get into programming graphs and linked lists and other various data structures in programming. All right, so effectively there are root nodes. So as you request information from a DNS server, if they do not know, you will go to a root node, all right, a root server. Remember, we're going to start, as we start going through these days, I'm going to start using the proper technical terms for everything. So start making those adjustments in your brain. Computer is a node or a box. There's 1,000 different names for them, but it's just computers. All right. So DNS servers at the top are going to be root nodes. These root nodes are most likely where you're going to go to directly because you want to be as fast as possible when you're on the internet. So you'll go to a root if you can't find the domain that you want, and you'll be like, hey, I'm trying to go to google.com. It will notice that you want to go to a .com address, and it will send you to a server below it that handles the .com addresses. That's its whole identity, that server below it. That all it does is .com, all right? And there it will then be able to tell you where you need to go from there. So it will direct you and potentially respond to you immediately with where google.com is. Now, there's these things called subdomains that you can have, which you guys should be very familiar with. You know, if you go to like maps.google.com, these are going to be subdomains. I guess they kind of change it to /maps. But subdomains are the dots before your little name here. And effectively, if you're going to have subdomains, you have to host your own or modify on your own like DNS. Usually most providers, like if you go get GoDaddy, they'll host those for you. You just need to tell it what you want. But if there are names like that, it will go to those nodes to figure out where it needs to go next. So let's go here real quick. Root is going to be the root. Think of this kind of like a tree, all right? Not a pyramid scheme, all right? Think of it like a tree. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to put it... Can I even do this in Paint? Can you rotate in Paint? Oh, yes, we can. There we go. We got a tree, all right? It's not a pyramid scheme. It's a tree complex. Very different, all right? Now, our tree complex here will have the bottom of the tree, which is going to be like, you know, where the roots go into the ground. That's why they're called root servers. So remember that. For DNS, if you're asked what a root name server is, it is the core of everything, all right? That's where everything will funnel up to. It is the base, it is the root. Any questions on that? All right. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them. We're just going to keep chugging along, but I am watching the chat. Let's talk about top level domains. This has changed a lot recently, and it was absolutely amazing when they did this. Top level domains are that .org, that .com, that .net, all right? These are called top level domains. Now, back like literally only a decade ago, 15 years ago, there were only like at what I want to even say 5 different top level domains you could get beside country code ones. All right, you could only have a .com address or a .org or a .net or a .edu or a .gov. Well, you can't get a .gov or a .mil. Yeah, it was literally just these ones. Yep, the original top leveled. These are the OGs right here. This is all you could get. So when the internet first had the introduction of these top level domains, these are the only ones you can get, and really you could only get these 3. I don't think you could get .int. I've actually never really seen .int. So you got 3 choices. Very, very limited. All right. And these last choices, you don't get a choice in that. Those are handled by your local government, your local military system, and your local education system. They are in charge of those and distributing them. You can never get one. All right. So life was kind of, a little boring back then. Kind of, black and white-ish. It's no fun domain names at all. This is all you got. It was super duper exciting. It was literally like Christmas, all right? Because about 10, 15 years ago, do they have the exact year? Let's see here. So it looks like, no, that's not the one I was looking at. Come on, you don't have the year for these? So it was way back ago, at least 10 years ago-ish. Sad it doesn't say the date right now, but they then were like, these kind of suck. Let's just release a bunch more top-level domains. And everyone was like, yeah, that would be awesome. And Google backed it, and Google said, yes, let's do that. And then Google said, also, so this happened when Google also changed their name, at least there were like several different drops that they did of new domain names. They weren't all at once, but when the domain names .xyz were about to come out, you could pre-register and pre-order them. Google pretty much fronted that because this conveniently was the time. If you look up when Google changed to Alphabet, this was the exact same time they dropped .xyz, because Google backed that so they could have the domain name abc.xyz. So if you didn't know that Alphabet, aka the company that owns Google, Waymo, like anything that you associate with Google, so YouTube, it's all owned by Alphabet, right? They made that parent company just recently, along with this domain name switch. If you do abc.xyz, XYZ, that is Alphabet's main site. There's not really much on it. This is pretty much it. And there's an investors portal for when you are investing money into Alphabet. But yeah, just some fun facts there for y'all. All right. let us see here. So yeah, it was super cool, like Christmas, and now all of these are available. So, you know, you going into your adult industry here can now have the amazing name .adult, all right? I even think there is a .porn also. Lucky you. So this is why you see all those cool names. There are literally hundreds of these available, and they are slowly becoming more and more popular, because there was kind of a stigma, and also not just a stigma, but look at you guys were also the issue. All right, the normal consumers. All right, the normal consumers thought of .com as the legit OG. All right, if you were going to something that wasn't .com, like a .net, it had a reputation of being maybe a scam. All right, especially on the early days of the internet. So .com was the thing. Even when these did come out, a lot of people did not jump onto them because they look a little scammy, all right? And they're hard for people to understand. If I tell you that my site is, you know, rootkit.farm, when you go home later that day, most likely you're going to type in rootkit.com. Even though I told you it was farm, it was just natural for people to default to .com. It is literally only recently, and by recently I mean like the last 3 or less years, where people are now comfortably adapting to these new domain names and are actually memorizing them appropriately, which is super awesome, because now it makes it more easier to use these domains and not really have people be paranoid or scared about their legitimacy. I don't know what you're typing, Kaval, but it just keeps getting redacted. Let's see here. Let's move on to the next thing. Also, there's one special domain name here called .app. So .app domain names are super cool, because they are the only domain name that has guaranteed security behind it. No other domain name does. What I mean by that is, if you try to just type in a random thing in here and try to get a .app domain, you have to not just buy the domain, but you are required to run an SSL certificate along with it, aka the thing that secures your internet traffic. It is required if you have this domain name. It's the only one that requires it. So they're usually a little bit more expensive, as you can see here, $23.99. The names do vary pretty drastically for the new names based off of popularity. All right, and you can see a lot of them showing up here and their price variation, and it's all based off of how desirable people or how desirable they are. Let's go. Generic top level domain. All right, so we talked about the top level domain. Let's talk about the generic. So these are going to be the breakdowns of these top level domains. So the generic ones are going to be the OGs that we talked about, your .com, your .org, etc., etc. So .net, .org, .biz, .info, I guess .pro and name are also considered it, but these are going to be your generic top level domain names. There are sponsored top level domain names, which are going to be ones that were requested. All right, you can see the sponsor, aka this company was like, hey, I want this, here's lots of money, make it happen. Because the person that is in charge of all of this is going to be IANA. Remember IANA? We talked about them a little bit earlier, about the IP addresses and how they like maintain everything, and they're the kind of the middle man and everything. Yeah, they also maintain the domain names. All right, so you can basically pay them to be like, hey, I want this, make it happen, and they'll make it happen. All right, so you can get your little XXX site. There's country code top level domains, which you are not allowed to have unless you belong to that country. All right, and that's going to be the end name. So if you're not from the US, you will have one of these. You will be very, very familiar with these. All right. And then there's brand top level domains. Where is it? Is this gonna be it? No. Did I mistype this one? Find your... it's right. Where is it? Where'd it go? Branded top level domain. Are you kidding me? GNT. Oh. There we go. Brands have also applied to get their own top level domains. All right. This is where, again, you can sponsor and get your own. All right. So the .loans, basically all the new cool ones are going to fall in this category. So .xyz, for example, I wish I had that big map up here, but that .xyz, Google wanted it. So Google basically requested it and then ended up getting it, right? So this is going to be your expansion. Now, why? Okay, I got to fix that. I don't know why this is in here twice, but let's move on to the next thing, shall we? Your fully qualified domain name, all right? A lot of you guys might refer to this to, as your URL, but it's not. There's slight differences, all right? So let's see here. So your fully qualified domain name is also referred to as the absolute domain name. That's going to include the .org, and then your actual name, basically the entire name of the URL you're going to. So for example, in this one, we have en.wikipedia.org. That right there is going to be your fully qualified domain name. All right, if you're going to google.com, that is going to be your fully qualified domain name. Let's go ahead and look at these breakdowns because this is going to help out a little bit. Can you also, do any of these graphs actually highlight the fully qualified? No, they don't, but I'll highlight. So www is a subdomain, all right? www stands for World Wide Web. www does not need to be there, all right? It does not need to be there. It was there in the early days because it referred to a folder that was literally called www directly on the server. So any traffic going to www was going to the folder called www, and that's what would be loaded. You do not need www. It's so unnecessary that we don't even have www for the rootkit site. If you try to go to rootkit, www.rootkit.org, it will not work because we don't even support it, because no one even types www anymore except for boomers. You're not a boomer now. You're a dev now. You don't type www unless something specifies it, all right? So that's something you should know. If you ever go to Google, you'll see that like Google, you can just type in google.com because they no longer require you to type in www. Let us go back to here. So your fully qualified domain name is going to be the entire domain name, including the domain name, the subdomain and the top level domain. That is the full thing, the full shebang, all right? Not the HTTP or HTTPS at the end, not whatever after .com, just the actual domain name part, right? And you can see the breakdown right here of your top level domain, what you actually get to choose, your domain name, and then your subdomain, which you can make infinite amounts of them if you want. Absolute domain name. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to go to the book. I think that might be even a typo here. let us go over to DNS. Not addressing. Alright, let us look at DNS. There we go. So kind of the breakdown we were talking about here. Alright. Another graphic if you guys want another graphic. So, okay, the fully qualified domain name is also sometimes aliased as the absolute domain name. So it's this. Everything you see right there, that's it. The whole shebang is the fully qualified domain name or the absolute domain name. So YouTube is the domain name. It is the top level domain. So YouTube is the domain name. .com would be the top level domain. So let's bring up Paint right here. Just to really spell it out. So YouTube is aka part 1. And .com is part 2. This is going to be your top level domain, aka the way I like to think of this is like character customization. All right, you got a character over here that you want to customize in a video game. All right, your character has some distinct parts. You may or may not be familiar with them. They have a head, they have their body, and let's say they have their feet. Let's say, or legs and feet. Let's say these are the only things that our game allows you to customize. The head is literally called the head. I'm just going to use the first letter. The body's literally called the bodies, and the leg is literally called the legs. This is essentially the same thing for these domains. This part is just called the top level. This part is just called your domain name. And then if you have anything before it, those are called your sub domain names. Sub. I'm just going to do sub D because these are the big D, all right? And they're sub, which means they're before. And you can have infinite amounts of subdomains linked together or different names. It doesn't matter. They're all classified as subdomains. That clear up your question? That's a good question. All right, I'm gonna move forward, and if you respond, I will revisit it. So, oh, perfect, yes. Let's see what we got here. So, DNS resource records and DNS queries. So we're gonna talk about this a little bit, because let's say you're all hyped up on DNS now, and you're excited, and you're like, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna buy 20 of these, all right? They're stonks. I'm gonna invest in all the coolest names ever. Little late to the game. A lot of domain names are pretty much taken and sold because people have built bots to auto-generate names based off of various different words, and they've bought out pretty much all of the ones you can think of. You gotta be pretty creative now or have lots of money. Also, most domain name sites double as auctions, because whether you hate or like NFTs, they have been around for a long time in the form of DNS names, all right, or DNS. NFTs are a concept that's as old as rocks. Let's see, we're going to GoDaddy. I don't use GoDaddy anymore, but they're just the default, and they have a great site if you ever want to look stuff up. There are a lot of different domain name providers. If you're in Europe, you might like 1&1, which is no longer called 1&1. They were bought by Iones, so you can use them. There's also Google domains, and you can use them if you want. There's also HostGator, and you can use them if you want. Do they still? Yeah, they sell domains also. There's AWS. you could use if you want to use AWS. There's literally a million different sites. Just try to stick with someone reputable. But GoDaddy's great. They have an auction platform built in. So if you want to use a domain that's already taken, you can bid on it or try to buy it. So I don't know, let's think cakes.com. That has to be taken, right? There we go. Cakes.com is taken. It looks like they aren't selling it right now, but you can pay GoDaddy to reach out to the person and be like, hey, I got someone that wants to buy it. How much you want to sell it for? Looks like cake.store right here is on sale, and they're reselling it for $3,000, right? These are pretty much NFTs. People buy them up because there's only one and they are unique. No one else can get them. Sure, you can take a picture of it. You can copy this text and send it to your buddy. That's not the point of an NFT. The point of an NFT is there's only one original and you can't own it unless you own it. So same thing with domain names. They are NFTs. You can't own it unless you own it. And this one costs $3,000. All right. So let us move forward here to where is my, there we go. When you go and buy your cool DNS, you were excited. You thought of a cool name of your new business. You bought a DNS name. Awesome. You're going to see a lot of settings in there, right? These are going to be called your resource settings. And these are all the settings you can set for your DNS. So if you log into your portal, this screenshot's taken from 1&1. So if you were to buy it with 1&1, it will look a little bit like this. They're all going to look all going to have the same information. They just may look a little bit different, but they're the exact same. All DNS servers have the exact same things you're allowed to do in them. So if we lost my train of thought. Let me see any comments. All right, sweet. Let's read this first. DNS servers store information about a portion of the domain space called a zone. All right. These zones represent a discrete portion of the namespace for a particular domain and provide a way to partition the domain's namespace to manageable sections. So again, it's really close to crypto. It's really best to think of this as the blockchain stuff, because blockchain is distributed. Blockchain hasn't caught up in the sense that right now, if you want to host, let's say, an Ethereum node, you need to download the entire history of all Ethereum since the beginning of it. That kind of sucks. They're fixing it right now, so you can now distribute the history, which DNS servers have already been on top of. They are doing they distribute the load across everyone, and they call these zones. So every zone will manage a little bit of information, and it's spread across everyone that's hosting these DNS servers. All right. DNS can be configured to use a single server or small network or multiple servers for larger environments. The SOA, this is not Sword Online Art, all right? Don't get it mixed up. This stands for oh no, now I forgot after making that that stupid joke. Something of authority. Let's look it up. Oh no, I'm blanking now. Not Society of Autocrats. That is wrong. All right. It's DNS space SOA. Start of authority. That's what it is. Start of authority. That's what it stands for. This is a record you are able to set in your DNS, right? The start of authority acts as the primary DNS server, all right? So this is the person you are saying is going to be the primary record holder for your information. You can pick and choose who you want to hold your information. It's totally up to you, all right? You are giving them the privilege to do so, all right? Any other authoritative servers for the zone are termed name servers, all right? So kind of think of it as that structure again where you have one main guy, which is your primary, and underneath it in a zone is going to be various other name servers. They're all DNS, but these ones are just going to be called name servers for right now. Records stored in these servers are used to resolve names to IP addresses, aka these are called forward lookups, or IP addresses to names, which are called reverse lookups. So you can do with DNS either or. In our internet example where we said you're going to google.com and you're saying, hey, google.com, figure it out, and you throw it to the DNS server. That's called a forward that's called the forward lookup. That's where you tell the DNS, look this up and give me the IP address back. You can do the reverse, where you can send an IP address and say, give me the domain name back. So if someone is being naughty on your network and sending you a bunch of malicious things, you can use DNS to maybe figure out more information about them. You know, if there's a domain name associated with them. And if there is, that's a recorded record that has to be registered with IANA. So you could potentially look up the registration on IANA to see where maybe they live. You have to have an address in your IANA registration. All right. So any changes done to the namespace are done on the primary server, which then sends and updates secondary name servers via this thing called zone transfers. So effectively, if you update the main server that you blessed with hosting your information, it can't just be the sole and only one. All right, that means everyone in the world has to go to that server. That's no bueno. All right, you are an effective dev that is having a global reach. So there's name servers underneath it that will mimic and copy what's on the main bad boy. All right, now this, just like the blockchain, actually the blockchain's better than DNS on this. DNS updates. So if you were to update a record, which we'll get into what these records mean, but if you were to update, think of it like this in your video game. If you were to update a setting in your video game, how appropriate, what's the appropriate amount of time for that update to take effect? Would you say instant? If you change your settings, you would like an instant change so you can keep going about your day? Well, that's not how it is in DNS world. It's the opposite of that. Again, programming is great if you are lazy, all right? If you like chilling, waiting, banging your head against the wall for things to update, hey, this is the job for you, all right? There are plenty of waiting and lying around, all right? When you update, until recently, when you update your DNS records, it could take 24 to 48 hours for everything to update. So if you bought a domain name, and by the way, domain names are just blank like slates. They're not hooked up to your server. So if you bought a domain name and then wanted to hook it up to this cool server that you had, you would have to wait up to 24 to 48 hours for it to propagate, for you actually to be able to use it. Like, you would literally click on save settings, and then you would tell your buddy, hey, go to this domain so we can play, or you can check out my website. They would see nothing for 24 to 48 hours because the DNS server they're connected to wouldn't have it until 24 to 48 hours later. It would have to propagate. Blockchain has never been that slow. Blockchain has also distributed servers. Bitcoin is one of the slowest. It takes 10 minutes for a propagation. With the other ones like Ethereum, it takes a couple minutes. And then some of the other ones like Solana and so forth, they take a second or less, or a couple seconds or less. Very fast. They also have servers and nodes around the entire world. All right. If you use services like AWS and Google Cloud, which is one of the reasons, the amazing reasons why people use AWS, is you can get propagation done in like a minute or less. It's actually mind-boggling because, I mean, think of it. If I told you the thing that you've done your whole career takes 24 to 48 hours, and then like a week later I said, hey, if you switch to this new company, they'll do it in a minute, you would think it's a scam. All right, you would straight up be like, no, they're liars. It's literally impossible. We've always done it this way. It's always taken 24 to 48 hours. There's no way. Oh, but there is a way. And so it's really, really epic, and it speeds up your workflow because now you don't have to wait for these weird long 24-hour synchronization events. Holy crap, that was a lot about DNS. We still got more to go through, but we gotta take a break first. Would you guys agree? So we're gonna go on break. We'll be back in 3 to 5 minutes. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat and I will answer them. And I'll see you guys in 3 to 5 minutes.
Discovery's 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
What is up? What is up? We are back at it for some more. But before we do, look. Hey, if you guys are in the Discord, please ping Taylor, give him an @ and ping him and say thank you for fixing the rootkit site. The cert is now back up and you will no longer get that red annoying security little thing right here. The site is live and so you can securely go to it now. And you see this amazing sweater? Go get yourself one of these by entering into the giveaway. All right, we're giving away one of these amazing sweaters. Look, and it says Rootkit on the back. And we have our exclusive 100-day of Rootkit stickers. Let's see if I can grab all of them. We'll be including one of these amazing guys right here along with it. Let me make sure. There we go. Yeah, okay. All right. Also, if you like what you're doing and you want to help support us, we are a non-profit, which means everything monetarily that you give us is tax deductible, at least here in the US. We're a US registered non-profit. If you donate here to our charity Streamlabs event, which is the little, I can never remember where, okay, right there. Up above, over there, you'll fill up that bar. All donations are being matched 1-for-1 for the first 10,000. We have some goal markers here like teaching for 24 hours straight, shaving my head, and the one that we will not get to, all right, shaving this beard because you guys don't want to see that, all right? Also, depending on the tier that you donate at, you can get yourself some of our stickers, our exclusive stickers, a collab t-shirt that we have, which is super cool, or this sweater itself if you just want to buy it directly. Also, I do a little dance every time there's a donation, all right? Let us see here. If you want to follow along, we are on our GitHub page, all right? So you can go to that. All the information is in our Discord. If you go to our site, look here, you can join Discord, and all of it is in the README. I see a bunch of questions were asked. Awesome. I'm super excited to answer these questions. These are all top 10, sorry, not top 10, A tier questions. These are great, amazing questions, all right? So first is by propagate. So let's focus on the words right here that we have a primary server and then we have other servers called name servers in our zone. So what's happening here, and let's pull up our paint. If any of you guys are familiar, wow, we got a lot of these. Let's open a new one. So how these kind of work and what propagating means is that you have your main big boy server here. So this is going to be your SOA. And by server, right now, every time I say server, I'm referring to DNS servers, all right? Domain name servers, because this is what we're talking about right now. There are lots of these all over the world, all right? They're not just a couple of them. And speed to them is important because it will directly affect your load time for your computer. Also, not everyone is going to be hitting the same name servers as you. All right, so your primary SOA, the big boy who you give the privilege to have basically the master record of whatever settings you configure, they are here. They are this server. And there are lots of other servers all over the world that will potentially reflect the information you set on there. When you change your information on this, propagation is basically the data being propagated or distributed to everyone else around the world. So that way everyone else can then interact with your server and have the most updated information. This process used to take 24 to 48 hours. All right? So very, very long. Why would you need to update your domain that you have bought? Great question. So you're not updating the domain, you're updating the records in the domain. And we're going to go through some examples. I loaded up our AWS account, and I'm going to show hands-on, along with the picture that we have right here. I'm going to show what exactly I mean, and we're going to step through some of these things you can set and show you exactly how it works. So if you end up buying your own domain, you'll know how to set it up. Let's see here. Why would you need to answer that? And what takes 24 to 48 hours to update? So that's the, again, that's the propagation here. Propagating it around the world would take 24 to 48 hours to update. I think GoDaddy takes like 1 to 12 hours. Like, everyone has gotten a little bit faster at it, but no one's faster than the cloud providers like AWS. They're literally sub 1 minute to send all this information out to the servers. All right. This is very similar to how blockchain tech works because it's distributed. The old terms for it was, this would be the master node and these would be slave nodes, and the master node dictates what the slaves do, pretty much in the exact same historical context as normal masters and slaves. A lot of tech companies, this is the original terminology that you'll see used in lots of programming, master and slave. All right, you should just get used to it. You're going to see it a lot. All right, things are changing because people feel like it's politically incorrect. So what you'll now see is people starting to use the terminology parent and children. All right, so you'll see things referred to as parent and children. Master and slave, parent and children are exactly the same. All right, when we get into Git, you'll see that the master part of your documentation, so basically like the master of your code, is starting to no longer be used as the term master because, again, people have dictated they don't really like using that term, so now it will be called the main. All right, we'll get into that more when we get into Git, but something you guys should know because you will see the terminology used in documentation as master and slave and parent and child. All right, that's the relationship they have, and again, SOA is going to be your top level person, and you have to push that data out to everyone around the world for you to be able to access your site. Does that kind of answer your questions there? I'm gonna go and continue forward and just go ahead and respond whenever. And if you have more questions, ask them. Ask all the questions you need. I want to make sure you guys are 100% solid on all of this. So I'm going to go through on AWS. They have this thing called Route 53. Why is it called Route 53? Well, if we think back to ports, ports have a one-to-one relationship for the type of application that's running. When you run a DNS server, a domain name server, that's going to run on port 53. Clever naming, I know, right? They call it Route 53 because DNS runs on port 53. If you don't believe me, if we type in port 53, we can see that port 53 is for the service right here, DNS. All right. You can also learn some more information here that DNS uses TCP and UDP. All right. It uses UDP for the transferring of information to people around the world, and it uses TCP for when you want to connect and figure out a domain name. I see. Yeah, thank you. I get it somewhat better. Hopefully it makes even more sense when we go through this example on AWS. You don't need to follow along with AWS, and no matter where you get your domain name, it will look exactly the same. Technically, AWS is a little bit more confusing because when you have a domain elsewhere, it will just auto show up. On AWS, you can kind of make a domain without actually owning it. It's kind of confusing. Don't really worry about it too much. All right, in here, I'm going to make our imaginary domain. Let's call this, I don't know, rootkits botnet. All right, we're making a botnet service. All right, rootkitsbotnet.com. So let's go ahead and make this. So right away, you'll see, so when you buy a new domain, this is all you're typically going to have inside of it. You're going to have a couple of records with these types and some type of values in it. We talked about SOA. SOA is going to be the start of authority. All right, respect my authority, as Cartman would say. And if we look in this, these are pretty much what we call key value pairs, which is the type, and then it will be directly related to a value. That's pretty much all that's in it, is a type and a value. All right, so the type is SOA, and the value in it is a domain name. Don't really worry about the numbers, but this is the computer, the one master computer that we've dictated is the one we want to host our master records in. All right, and anyone else that wants access to this may talk to the SOA, or they could talk to these guys right here, our name servers. So NS stands for name servers. So by default, on most providers, you will get 4 different name servers. So on AWS, you'll get 4 different ones. And if you look here, you can kind of see, so these guys right here will most likely be all around North America or the US, all right? And we have one here with the UK on it. So most likely this is going to be in the UK. So that way when people visit our site here from the UK, they'll be able to resolve our domain name faster. They don't have to send their traffic all the way to the US to then ping a DNS server in order to get a response back on where to go. They can just do it local to them, and this would be the name server for anyone in Europe. So these are, again, the slave or children, whatever connotation you want to use. This is going to be the parent or master, this second one. This is where your records are kept. These are the legit ones, and these ones are the ones that are propagated. This is what used to take up to 24, 48 hours. It doesn't anymore. And you'll see that. On AWS, you'll see that it takes just a couple seconds, well, less than a minute to propagate things. So we're gonna go back to the book to learn some more of these types. But so far, to recap, in your records, you can have an SOA record, name server records. All right, nothing here though, so far that we've learned will connect us to our actual server. All right, so let's figure out how to connect our domain name that we now have to an actual server that's running our website or our games or whatever we're doing with our server. So if we look here, I guess we just got a table. So we're going to look at our table here. So these are various different record types that you can have, all right? So SOA is your start of authority. NS are going to be those children name servers that things get propagated out to, all right? A is for your IPv4 IP address of your server. So when you go out to google.com and you ping the DNS and you say, hey, what address should I go to? And it returns an address, it's going to be returning this A record, all right? The IPv4 record, unless you requested the IPv6 record. If you requested the IPv6 record, you'll get the IPv6 address back, and that's going to be quadruple A. So AAA is for IPv6, A is for just normal IPv4. So when you buy your first domain name, these are the things you want to set. You do not need to set both of them. You just need to set one of them. And that's it. That's how you completely set up your domain and hook it up to a server. It's that simple. You just buy it. Again, these first two right here will automatically be set up for you, just like it was here. And then you just need to set the A record or the quadruple A. So if we go over here and we say create a record, we can create a record for our site, and we can specify right here what type of record we want to create. So if we want to create an A record, We can say that, and then we can plug in our IP address in here. So let's just make up an IP address. Let's go with 1111. All right, this shouldn't work, and this is for other reasons, but as you can see right here, it's propagating. So it says the record that we just updated was created successfully, and now Route 53 is propagating our changes to those other smaller name servers around the entire world right now. And it usually takes 60 seconds for this propagation to finish up. And we can click on this view status button to see in real time what's going on. And bam, it's already finished. It was less than a minute. Super fast, super awesome. No more like ungodly wait times. It's super, super cool. All right. So this record that we just made is now in here and updated and pushed to all of our servers around the world. And now, anytime someone goes to this website, they're going to be told to go here. All right. This does not work right now. If you try to go to this is not going to work. All right. That's because we don't actually own this domain name. All right. So it's not fully hooked up. We're just kind of emulating things right now on AWS. So there's this additional record called a CNAME, or a canonical name, which is an alias. All right. It's an alias. So www is a common alias for web hosting. So WS1 can also be reached via. Okay, let's look back here. And what's a good example for our CNAME? DNS CNAME. So for the CNAME, basically you can put a URL in the CNAME and refer to that. That's typically what a CNAME allows you to do. So if we wanted to create a CNAME here, we can say, hey, when someone goes to this, I want you to actually go to like google.com. And that is no bueno. DNS is not permitted zone. So we're going to run into some type of issues, but that's effectively what you can do with the CNAME. I'm trying to think of a good example I can give right now, but just know you can put just straight up names or domain names in there. Next one, MX, mail servers. Have you ever used email before? Email uses everything exactly like you, exactly the same way. They have to ping out to a domain name server. Your domain name server may have an address here for where you go to your website. For example, when you want to go to Gmail, you type in gmail.com and you'll get a website. But also, you can email on gmail.com. People have addresses, at gmail.com. When you have that, when you have that, it will not be looking at this address here in a record. Instead, it will be looking at the MX record, which is for your mail servers, right? So we can have a different address in here for our mail servers. So anytime you send mail, gosh darn it. Anytime you send mail to a server, it will try to look up the MX record. So if you want to set up your own email server, you can do that, and you just need to set your MX type on your domain name. Next is your service record. All right, this is for login services like Kerberos and LDAP, which we won't get into too much right now. And then there's pointer records, maps an IP address to names for reverse lookup, so you can manually set those up if you want. It will automatically default to the domain name that you have set. There's also things called text records, which basically are just extra things that you can kind of set there and it doesn't really matter. You can put anything you want in a text record. Why didn't it work until you put a 1 at the beginning? That's a good question. All right, so if we go into DNS MX record. So if we look up this, let's go to the Wikipedia page. There's several things that you have to set potentially in your MX record. So the thing that I just set was the priority. So what that means is I set it as priority 1. So you can have multiple mail servers, because if one of your servers, this goes into availability. Google doesn't just have one Gmail server running. They have hundreds potentially of Gmail servers running all over the world. So in here, they'll set all of the Gmail servers that exist all over the world. We can actually, let's do some hands-on stuff. Actually, we're just gonna go to the site. So there's a tool built into Linux called Dig, all right? What it stands for right now, I don't know. Let's look up Linux Dig. I can't remember. It doesn't say. Maybe it doesn't stand for, oh, here we go. Domain Information Groper? Oh no. All right, we're gonna move forward. Dig is a command you can do to get information about DNS servers. This can be potentially very useful for you to diagnose if your information, for example, has propagated around the world. Also, if you are trying to exploit people or participate in hackathons, you can use Dig to find valuable information about domain names, and the servers behind them. So if you type in Google Dig, so usually if you do Google Dig or Google Dig tool, Google has the Dig tool available as a browser, as a web service. This is super useful. Let's all go to this. I'll go and put this in the chats, so that way you guys can follow along. So in here, you can look up, because it is public knowledge. Anything you put in your DNS, you need to be careful, because anything you put in there is going to be public. All right, anyone can see that information. So if we go to something like rootkit.org, you're going to see the address, so you can filter through all of the records here. Any is going to give you everything. So if we go to our A record, you'll see we have the IP address of our server. So now you know exactly where our server is. If we click on AAA, you'll see we have no, IPv6 address set. If you go over to MX, you're going to see our mail servers here. So we're going to talk about this one because it will make a little bit more sense. So there's two parts when you're setting a mail server, a mail server here. It's, again, your priority and the address. The priority dictates what server to use. And if for some reason, if I can figure out where my tab is, if for some reason that server is no longer available or is not working, you'll automatically use the next server. So that way you have a seamless experience as a user. You don't think your email has gone bad or anything like that. It will just keep trying different servers until it finally works. So you'll see this first one we have set. We use Google products for our email stuff. So this is the address of Google's mail server that we're using. And this is our preference, aka by default, all of our mail should be going to this server. If that one doesn't work for some reason, we have two here at the very, very end. They're not in order, that are set to 5. So both of these have random chance of one being chosen over the other. Who knows on which one we'll choose? If that first one ever fails, it will try to choose one of these. If for some reason neither of these are working, then it will go to one of these 10. We have 2 here that are set at 10, and it will just randomly choose one of these. But it's failover, so if servers are ever going down, we can still keep services up, still have our email, still move forward because there are multiple servers running the same thing. Does that clear up your question there? Go ahead and move forward as you respond. And then we go to DNS queries. So we talked about DNS queries. Anyone can make a query to a DNS, and using tools like Dig, you can make queries to DNS servers. So you can also figure out literally any information like the name servers, the SOA. So you can see our SOA here, and if they have any text records set. So we have a text record set here. Most likely this is for verifying that, I think this is for verifying our mail server records. So because sometimes, like, if you want to hook up Google Mail to your domain, they have really good system and setup process. It's very, very simple, but to verify that you have that domain that you claim that you own, Google will tell you to set things in those text records that are special codes they randomly generate to you. Basically think of them as like passwords to verify that you actually have that domain. All right, this is pretty commonplace. If you hook up, for example, your GitHub, they'll do the same thing. So if we go to GitHub here, and if you go to our GitHub, you'll see that our domain shows up right here. To get your domain to show up there, you have to first buy it, and once you buy it, you'll be going to your settings and trying to hook it up. When you try to hook it up, they're going to tell you to add a text record, and once you add that text record, they'll try to look that text record up. Once they look it up, they'll be like, hey, you actually do own that domain, and then it will show up here. So it's a pretty common place for servers or services to utilize those text records as a verification. Any other questions? Let us see here. So DNSs can do a bunch of different things like querying, and you can figure out who owns a domain, and you can do those reverse queries. So let's go over a couple examples of us doing that, shall we? So we know we can ping do it. Let me see. Windows DNS reverse lookup. What is the command for that? Ping A. All right. So we learned about ping last time. So let's all open up our PowerShell and make this bigger. If you're on a different operating system, this should still work. And we can actively hit domain name servers and utilize that lookup and the reverse lookup. So let's see it in action here. I want to ping google.com. So this will tell me, it will do that DNS lookup for me and tell me what google.com's IP address is. And again, you guys should have different answers because Google has lots and lots of servers. So they, on their DNS records, will do smart logic to basically route you towards the nearest server, because you can do that. AWS even has tools for that too in here, which would be something that Taylor would be better at talking about. I think it's in the hosting zone tags. I can't remember right now, but there are settings. Oh, it's for the routing policy. So basically, on the DNS server, I can say you need to go to this server, this IPv4 address, when you are within a certain location. So I can say if you're in North America, you're going to go to this address. If you're in Oceania, you're going to this new address. And I can set multiple different addresses, and whoever is in this region is going to go to it. And you can even get granular to the country level, and I think you can go even more granular than that. Let me see if I type in like New York. No, it just goes down to the state level. Also, if you're getting annoyed by people, you can use this to basically avoid countries if you want to avoid countries. So you can go in here and be like, hey, a lot of people are trying to get and hack into my stuff from Russia or China or North Korea. I hate them. I want to block them. You can block them through these methods. You can choose people that you don't want to reach. So you can avoid potentially even being hacked in the first place, at least by people directly reaching out to you from those countries, which we actively do on our services. We actively block several countries because we are annoyed of them and they constantly try to hack things. Let us see here. We were pinging, that's right. So it looked like A. So let me do attack H here and see. Yes. All right. I just wanted to, I trusted the article, but I wanted to verify. So again, if we ping Google, we'll get the IP address here. And if we want to do a reverse query, so if we don't know someone's given domain name, all we know is we have an IP address that's associated with them. We can do some analysis to maybe see if there is a domain name associated with them, or this could be a useful tool to seeing if your DNS information has propagated. If we now ping this address and we put a TAC A here, TAC A will do a reverse DNS query and it should tell us who owns this IP address. So now if we stop, you'll see this right here is the owner of this IP address, this domain name. This may look like a lot of gobbledygook and very confusing to you. And if we go to it, you'll see it is owned by Google. This is a Google domain name. All right. What is going on here? Well, this is going to be a topic for another day. We're not going to get into this too much. We will explain it more as we move forward, but this is a part of their CDN. Their what does even CDN stand for? Sorry, as you go through, you're going to learn lots of acronyms, and people know the acronyms and what they are, but you kind of forget the actual meaning a lot. What is a CDN? That's going to be, content delivery network. So these are what, there's a buzz term called edge devices and edge commuting. And effectively, this is a part of that. These are basically a lot of servers all over the world that are a little bit weaker than normal, but they're very, very close to you. So they can help you in performance. It's very important for costs, and pretty much everyone uses these. We won't get into them much more than that, but that is why your domain name looks different here than google.com. All right. Any questions on that as we move forward? So there's iterative and recursive querying that you can do. A client makes additional DNS queries if necessary to other DNS servers to find the requested name to an IP address. And during a recursive query, a DNS server makes queries to other DNS servers on the behalf of the client. So let's draw this out. Where is my paint? So iterative. Basically, here's your computer at home, and there's a process that your computer will perform in order to resolve names. So your operating itself operating system itself will keep a log of domain names to IP addresses. So first, your computer will look at itself and see if it has it. If it doesn't have it, then it will go to your router at home. All right, this is your home router, and your home router also keeps a record of DNS names to resolve, and it will ask it, hey, do you have a record for this domain name? If they don't, then your next mission will be to go to a domain name server that your operating system will dictate, and you'll ask this domain name server, do you have this address? And if it does, then it will respond back and be like, hey, I got it, here's the information. That's iterative. You're basically going one at a time to different devices to try to figure out who has this domain name. The other one is going to be recursive, which is going to be, here's your computer. Your computer will first look, and if it doesn't have it, it's going to request it from your router. Your router isn't going to have it, but your router is a good guy. Your router instead will be like, hey, don't worry, buddy, I'll take it from here. All right? It will reach out to a DNS server for you on your behalf. And if that DNS server for some reason didn't have it, that DNS server will reach out to another one on your behalf, and it will potentially go infinitely them going on forward and forward to try to reach it on your behalf. And when someone finds it, they'll send it back to this guy. This one will send it back to this one, and then your router will send you back the information. So that's iterative and recursive. There's DNS forwarding, which is a server used to forward DNS queries for usually external names, aka internet names, to a DNS server outside of a network. If a DNS server cannot resolve a name or an IP locally, this method is used in an attempt to resolve the name, right? AKA what we've already kind of been talking about. So DNS caching is basically just caching a record that was recently looked up. All DNS servers will do this, all right? This is making them faster. What does caching mean? Where is caching stored? Great question. You're going to see caching as we move forward used a lot. All right. Caching is super important, especially for speed. And caching all depends on your application and how it wants to go about it. All right. There is cache on your CPU. That most likely isn't going to be the same type of caching that we're referring to, but it could be. All right. If we think about your computer, there's a bunch of different places this information can be stored. By default, it's going to be stored on your hard drive. Getting information off the hard drive is usually really, really slow. So if you're going to cache information, you want it to be basically in a more readily available state that's going to be faster. So typically caching will keep all the most commonly used information in memory at all times, because memory is very fast. Because if you remember back when we were talking about hardware, memory is close to the CPU. Anything close to the CPU is very fast. All right. So memory is typically going to hold that cached information. You could hold it on your CPU cache, but that's not typical. That would be even faster. But again, that's not typical. Usually cache means it will hold it in your memory. So if you are making an application and you want to cache things that are regularly used or regularly looked up, you may want to program it to stay in memory for a little bit longer, so that way it's more readily available. Lots of applications use caching, like databases, in order to make your queries faster, aka when you try to look up and get data, it will be faster. Any questions on that? And then finally here, there's zone transfers. And these are conducted when the primary DNS server, aka your SOA, transfers its cache or database to a secondary or backup DNS server. Zone transfers are done at regular intervals by the DNS admin to ensure backups remain current. AKA, this is you transferring it to those other name servers. So if we go back here, these guys, you'll perform zone transfers to transfer that information to these and keep backups everywhere. Any questions on that? That was a lot. That was 2 hours of domain name servers, basically. A lot of stuff. I need more coffee. A lot of information about domain name servers. Again, it's not for no reason. They are important. Most of this stuff, especially the technical stuff, it's good to be aware of. You don't need to usually know it by heart, all right? It's just good to be aware of and why certain things or how certain things work. So if you ever run into issues and you don't know what those issues are, you're able to then, potentially go about it in a semi, intelligent way. You're not just completely lost in the sauce. So let's recap here a little bit. We talked about a lot of stuff. DNS servers, they run the world. DNS servers are usually ran by companies who want to make a buck off of you because you have to use a DNS server in order to get wherever you want to go, unless you're using the IP address. If you ever look up something directly with an IP address, you will never touch a DNS server, right? Can we invoke, or maybe we have some traffic in here we can look at. Port 53. How do I get the port or search on the port? I think it's IP destination. Or do I gotta do like TCP dot? Oh, there we go. TCP port equal 53. No DNS traffic. Continue without saving. Let's see if we can pick up on some, shall we? We should if we ping, right? Let's do a ping and see what happens here. No. Because I think, hold on. What was this original TCP? No, there's just one. Well, if your computer ever makes a request, you could pick up on it and see it. All right, we're gonna move forward from that. What was I doing? We were doing a recap. You know what? It's around break time. Let's go on a break and then we'll do a recap after, because we cover a lot of stuff. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them into the chat and we'll answer them, all right? Any questions that you have, if you want to see an example of something else, let me know and we will address them when we come back. I think also put in how you guys are feeling, because I'm okay with calling it a day right there if you guys want, because that was a lot of information we covered. But if you guys want to move forward a little bit, we can cover a couple more of these items. All right. I'll see you guys in 3 to 5 minutes.
But her achievement.
All right. We are back. Let's see here. Oh, we need to change the camera. Sweet. Zensu. Are you... Does Google allow you to, hold on, let me see this. Oh, you can remove your message. So you guys are saying stuff and then removing it. Is that it? Can we end it today? That's a lot of new information. Yeah, we can totally end it today. I'm in agreement. Let's do just a quick recap. All right. Quick recap of the important things. All right. DHCP, or I guess socket. Sockets are the same as ports effectively. Sockets usually are in reference to a port that you keep open, typically in software that's like a server or something where it's opening up and listening. So if you ran a DNS server, you would have an open socket on port 53. That's the programming reference to opening a port, is a socket. DHCP, usually included in your router, but it's not always, especially when you're in business world, all right? It can be ran as a separate server that handles assignment of IP addresses. This is all about your IP addresses. DORA, the important thing, DORA the Explorer here is for exploring your network and assigning IP addresses. This is the process that computers will use in order to communicate with the DHCP server and get IP addresses. DNS servers, all right? DNS servers are going to be for the for resolving your domain names. Domain names, just like your body, have several different parts to them, all right? Those parts are going to be, where's our paint? Are going to be there's 3 different parts you can have, all right? Your TLD, aka your top level domain. This is going to be your .com or your .org or your .whatever. That's the top level domain, all right? After that is going to be your actual domain name. So this is going to be like your Google, and anything before that is going to be your subdomains, all right? Your sub, because it's before. So let's say like maps. Following this is how servers are laid out. So there's going to be, your DNS servers are laid out as a root server, and underneath that are going to be servers that are dedicated for some type of top level domain. All right, their whole job is to resolve top level domains, and then underneath that will be referring to the actual domains that you might want to resolve, and then underneath that is the subdomains you might want to resolve. And we got our pretty picture. Let me switch that to this. Let me flip it back around so it's not as confusing. There we go. Pretty little picture here. Can I... Oh, whoa. This is just the hierarchy they follow. All right. So it's just faster for you as the end person to figure out where everything is. This won't be like that graph and stuff won't be on like the test or anything, but knowing like what the root name server is, it's at the very, very top. That is important to know. The top level domain is important to know. The generics are the OGs. There's sponsored ones, which you can pay money for. There are the country codes, which are meant for countries themselves. And there's the brand ones, which are going to be ones that companies want to exist, so they will sponsor them and have them exist. This is just a repeat. Fully qualified domain name is your entire domain, all of it. Let me pull up the... So this whole thing is your fully qualified domain name. You may or may not have a subdomain at the beginning of it. That is fine. If you do, then that is included in your fully qualified domain name. If you don't, then it's just going to be what is there. All right. Your HTTP or HTTPS is not a part of your fully qualified domain name. Additionally, anything after .com, so you'll be slash something, is not a part of it. So if we look right here, we have this address, github.com/rootkit tech.org/networking and protocols. This part is not a part of your fully qualified domain name. It's just github.com. That is it. Absolute domain name is the same thing as fully qualified domain name. They're just two different ways to refer to the same thing. Let's see here. DNS resource records. These are your DNS records. These are public. All right. These are public things that anyone can see. So don't put anything in there that's important. I say that because it has happened in the past, and that's literally how entire companies have been hacked and exploited, because some IT person or developer was setting things up and said, hey, this would be a great place to store passwords. Not a great place to store passwords. DNS queries are what happens every time you try to go to a website or when you ping something. You have to query a DNS server in order to figure out what the IP address is, because again, we work at the IP level. All right, we're sending traffic to each other's IP addresses, not to these names. The names are just there because us humans can understand words easily, not numbers. All right, no one likes math. All right. Iterative and recursive are just two different ways you can query. One is you going to everything yourself, and recursive is you going to your router, like your home router, for example, and on your behalf, it will keep searching for you. And each DNS server will also perform a search for you. All right. DNS forwarder is basically forwarding your DNS. What was the actual term in here? Is a server used to forward DNS queries. So if you try to query it, it will just send your request down the line. It says, yeah, I'm not going to even handle this, bro. Go to the next person. Caching is done to make things faster. All right. If someone is going to, let's say, lots of people go to google.com very, very frequently. So instead of keeping this information stored on your disk, servers will cache it in memory to make it faster when you're querying, and they'll have faster response times. Caching is just a way to speed things up. That's the key thing, is speed things up. Zone transfers are just ways for you to duplicate the data on your primary server, your SOA, across all of the name servers attached to you, aka other DNS servers attached to you. All right, it's just duplicating that data to other places in the world. Also, for your records, you should know at least, at a minimum, SOA. All right, NS. So again, SOA is your master server where your records are kept. And when you go to GoDaddy, AWS, wherever you are, you're manipulating the SOA. After that, they're NS. Those are the name servers, okay? These are the guys, these are your slaves, your children's, whatever you want to use for your terminology. These will merely exist to duplicate and be exact copies of whatever you are. MX records are for your mail servers, all right? You can think of it as mail exchange. It's also the only one with an M, all right, for mail. A is for pointing to a direct IP address. This will be the server that you want to basically respond for people to go to when they go to that domain address. That domain name. A is for IPv4. Quadruple A is for IPv6. Those are the only ones that are important that will be potentially on the test. Oh, and I guess text records. Text records are just extra things that can be holding various texts. It's up to you. They just exist there for any additional thing someone may want. You can put any text in there, like the passwords to your server, which you definitely should not do, or they could be used as verification method. It doesn't matter. They're just there to hold some type of generic text. any questions on that at all before we call it good? We never went through DNS source code, by the way. Yeah, you want to go through the source code of a DNS server too? We add that on to everything else. Might as well have gone this far in the rabbit hole. Aye. Let's see over in Twitch. Alright, any other questions in regards to any of that? We do have some videos, so those of you who are subscribed to our Patreon or our Discord premium members, you will get access to the support chat. Alright, and in the support chat, it's buried right now, but in here somewhere, you'll see that we continuously post, well, I'm not going to keep looking right now, but we continuously post, not every day, but when we have time, we post our companion guides. Those companion guides, if you go to our announcements, you'll see in here, in announcements, did I pass it? Oh no, where is it? There we go. We have our day one that's public, and basically we'll link in here flashcards. If any of you guys make flashcards, we'll have challenges. Let me zoom in a little bit. Challenges, we will go have quick overviews of everything we went through. So this day we were going over subsets, proper subsets, and basically it's pretty much just terms and definitions. All right, and we'll have supporting videos. You don't need to be subscribed to find supporting videos, but if you want some that we've already Googled and found and deemed appropriate, you can subscribe and also support us at the same time, which is super, super awesome. Sweet. Any questions tomorrow? We could do it tomorrow. We are not going over the source code for domain name servers. You are free to do that on your own time. We are not doing that. We are not going through the source code for any of these guys. All right. The big thing is just you need to know these are things that exist that you may interact with, and when we get into programming, you may or may not be interacting with them. We'll see on what we make. It's totally up to you guys on how we go through and make and what we make. All right, if there are no further questions, I think we're going to call that good for today, and we shall continue tomorrow, same time. We'll be starting with mail. All right, 2 different things for mail, and we're going to continue on, talk about the internet as you know it with HTTP and HTTPS, talk about URLs a little bit, encryption, SSH, different types of file transfers, and more encryption stuff, and then LDAP. And maybe we'll get into some specialty network stuff, depends on how fast we go through all of this. Specifically VPNs, which we've already talked about and I went on a rant of, and we are going to make a big video for VPNs that we will be releasing on the channel. Basically me showing off why they are scams, and we are going to be exposing a lot of the biggest VPN providers, specifically going through the verbiage on their site and why they are straight up lying to you. All right, do not get scammed, do not use VPN. The only asterisk I would put to that is if you live in a country where you will get banned for doing normal things like watching this channel. You should probably use, not banned, but like jailed, all right? But that still won't protect you to a certain extent. We'll get into, you'll see, we'll get into a little bit when we go into the video, when we talk about it here on stream and on the video that is posted. All right, I shall see you guys on the next one.